Hello friends. Today what we are going to start with a new chapter called as ionic equilibrium. Now let me just give you a quick recap. We have done something related to this before. In our 11th standard we had a chapter called as chemical equilibrium. Same part, chemical equilibrium. There we have understood what is meant by equilibrium. It is applicable only to reversible reactions. Why? How to find out the equilibrium constant, the numericals based on that. All those concepts we have done. Now, actually speaking, ionic equilibrium is a part of chemical equilibrium only. Now, in ionic equilibrium, as the name suggests, we are specifically going to talk about those compounds which can form ions, and that is why we say ionic equilibrium. So in general we can say that ionic equilibrium is a sub part of chemical equilibrium. It's a broader concept, chemical equilibrium, and when we apply that only to those compounds which can form ions, then we call that as ionic equilibrium. So before going with this part, it would be nice if you could revise chemical equilibrium chapter of our 11th standard. So many terms which I am going to introduce now are already been done in our chemical equilibrium chapter. So it would be much easier for you to understand. Now, what is ionic equilibrium? It is the equilibrium between ions and unionized molecules in a solution. Ions and unionized molecules means they have both, and the equilibrium means definitely we are going to talk about those compounds who can form ions but not 100%. So there are ions as well as unionized molecules, and when we have equilibrium between them, then that equilibrium is called as ionic equilibrium. Now for ionic equilibrium, basically we have to understand what is meant by electrolyte and non-electrolyte. We have done this before also, just a quick revision. Electrolytes gives rise to ions when dissolved in water. Means in their aqueous solution they form ions. So we call it as electrolytes. Non-electrolytes do not ionize and exist as molecules in aqueous solution. Means in this they do not undergo the process of ionization at all. We have done this in our lower standards, saying that electrolytes conducts electricity, non-electrolytes does not conduct electricity. Electrolytes are generally soluble in water, non-electrolytes are insoluble in water, or non-electrolytes dissolve in water but do not dissociate in water. So that is electrolytes, non-electrolytes part. Examples, we have examples as NaOH, HCl, H2SO4. These are few examples I have written here. There are many acids and bases. They all are examples of electrolytes. Whereas glucose, urea, sucrose, starch, polymers, those are examples of non-electrolytes. So that is a basic difference between electrolyte and non-electrolyte. Now, those electrolytes are further of following two types: strong electrolytes and weak electrolytes. Now, what's the basic difference between the two? The strength of the electrolytes is decided depending upon its extent of ionization in its aqueous solution. That is, if it ionizes completely or almost completely in its aqueous solution, then we call them as strong electrolytes. And if it dissociates or ionizes to a smaller extent in an aqueous solution, then it is called as weak electrolyte. So depending on the extent of ionization, we decide whether it is strong or weak. If it ionizes completely, it is called strong electrolytes, and if it ionizes partially, then we call it as weak electrolytes. Now, the examples of strong electrolytes are strong acids and strong bases. In this, I can take example of HCl, which is a strong acid. In its aqueous solution, it will form H plus ions and Cl minus ion. Pay attention here, I have shown irreversible arrow. Reason, here the reaction is not coming back to the reactant stage because it 100% forms H plus ions and Cl minus ions. So that is why we show here irreversible single headed arrow. Whereas in case of weak electrolytes, I have taken an example of acetic acid. In its aqueous solution, it forms acetate ions and H plus ions. But in this, I have represented it by a irreversible ki place pe reversible arrow. That is double headed arrows. Because as they are weak electrolytes, it will not undergo 100% ionization. Means it will not only give you products. Some portion of it will be converted into ions, whereas some of it will be as it is. That is, it will be in the form of acetic acid only. So that is the very important thing is you have to remember the arrows. For the strong electrolytes, the reactions are represented by irreversible arrows, and for weak electrolytes, the reactions are represented by irreversible ki jagah pe reversible arrows. Now, as we saw in weak electrolytes, the ionization is not 100%. As it is not 100%, if we want to know to what extent it has undergone ionization or it has undergone dissociation, we need to know some term so as to define that. And that is why for weak electrolytes, we have introduced one concept called as degree of dissociation, which is denoted as alpha. Degree of dissociation is a term which is applicable more precisely to the weak electrolytes. Why? That you will understand once we go with its definition. It is defined as a fraction of total number of moles of the electrolyte that dissociates into its ions when the equilibrium is attained. Fraction they mean to say. Now, if I have to write down it in the form of formula, it will be alpha is equals to number of moles dissociated upon total number of moles. In this, if I apply this for electrolytes or if I apply this for strong electrolytes, then whatever are my total number of moles present, they all will undergo dissociation. So in this case, my numerator and denominator for strong electrolytes will always be same. So my alpha value will always be 1. If I convert that into the form of percentage, it will be always 100. So it is not applicable to strong electrolytes. Whereas in weak electrolytes, numerator and denominator will never ever be same. Because as we have mentioned, it undergoes dissociation incompletely, means partially. So whatever is the total number of moles, part of that will undergo dissociation. So this term is majorly applicable only and only for weak electrolytes. That is degree of dissociation, or if we multiply it by percentage, we get percent dissociation. Now in this, an important note, if C is the molar concentration of an electrolyte, the equilibrium concentration of cation or anion, we write it as alpha into C. That is whatever is our degree of dissociation, that if we multiply by concentration, we will get our equilibrium concentration part. Maybe of cation or it may be of anion. So that is a concept, degree of dissociation, which I repeat, it makes sense more to weak electrolytes.